running now. Okay. So we're good. Stop that. Okay, here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, my name is Larry James. My company is Speak with Larry, no spaces. And today I have someone who has the pleasure of really impressing me, because as I was reading his bio, and a lot of times people aren't really sure how important a bio is when they go do an engagement of some sort. But since you have the qualification that you do, I can see the need for you. That's probably a natural thing for you, isn't it, Marty?
A bio?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been a professional speaker for many years, and I try to be as effective on an interview and make the host look good. And so,
Right.
providing the host with good information to get started is always a good thing to do.
Absolutely. But a lot of people just they hadn't been privy to that yet. That kind of like goes over their head. But I'm going to read this quick bio about Marty. Marty's last name is Fahncke. So we were having a little talk about that in the beginning because it looks nothing like it sounds. But this is what it says. Marty, for over 30 years, Marty's career, like his life, has been one big adventure. Starting in the mid-1980s as a frontline order agent at what would eventually become the world's largest call center, to becoming one of pioneers online marketing, to helping launch the international infomercial business, to finding early success in social media marketing, speaking on stages around the world, and much, much more. In his career, Marty has successfully sold everything from Elvis's '68 comeback album to fitness equipment to real estate and even entire companies. Along the way, Marty's marketing efforts have sold over $1 billion in goods and services and over $300 million in business acquisitions and divestitures. In all this time, Marty has had the pleasure of working with some of the greatest marketers and business minds in the world. People like Dan Kennedy, Robert Cialdini, Jack Canfield, Robert Allen, Bill Mays, T. Harv Eker, and many, many more. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you guys to Marty Fahncke.
Well, thank you very much, Larry. Appreciate that. Having you read that, I just realized the Elvis's '68 comeback album, the way that's written, it makes it sound like I was around in '68, and marketing, which I need to update that verbiage. So thank you for reading that so clearly, because now I need to go say the re-release of the Elvis '68 comeback album. So I'm going to go fix that on my bio. So appreciate that.
And sometimes when you hear that played back, kind of, you really do, really, wait a minute, I shouldn't have that there. That doesn't go there.
Yeah, exactly. You got to have somebody else read your stuff.
Absolutely. So let me ask you from the beginning. I like to ask all my guests from the start. So what got you in this entrepreneurial journey? Because most people, we're taught to go to school, get a good education, work for 30 or 40 years, retire and live off what you've done, right?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what my dad's journey was too. I'll tell you a story about him in just a minute. But to answer your question, I was born to be an entrepreneur. Okay. I started my first business when I was 12 years old. I would buy old bicycles at yard sales and flea markets. I would fix them up, and I'd turn BMX bikes, and I'd fix them up and customize them, and I'd turn around and resell them. So I was selling water purifiers door to door when I was 14. I was selling vacuum cleaners door to door when I was 16. Mm-hmm. And I've always been in marketing, always been in sales, and always been an entrepreneur. So I was absolutely born to it. Now, what's interesting is I don't know why I was born to it, because very few people in my family have been entrepreneurs. I grew up mostly military in my family, but my dad, who was had given 20-something years to the military and 20-something years to the U.S. Postal Service, when I was a young man, early in my career, pulled me aside and said, "Now you gotta quit all this bouncing around and all this stuff you're doing. You need to find a good job and stick with it, and stay there and earn your retirement and stuff. He says, you can't just keep doing all this, floating around from project to project and stuff that you're doing." And about 3 years later, he had been let go from the post office 1 year before his full retirement.
Wow.
And which cost him who knows how many, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get his full retirement and everything else. And he came to me, and by that time I was making more money than he was after many years. And he said, remember when I sat down and told you needed to, find one place and stick with it? And I said, yeah. And he says, you're doing the right thing. So, so I don't know where I got the entrepreneurial bug, but I've certainly got it, and I've always had it.
Right. And, I believe that we're all born to be entrepreneurs. I don't think we're really supposed to work for anybody else. I think, first of all, that we're all individually wrapped, right? When we come from the womb, I think there's nobody else like us on the planet. And our authenticity is what we need to express to the world. And the world will, in turn, reward us for doing that. But from the time you come out, I believe you have zero fear. I've heard a baby only has 2 fears. Loud noises and falling. Those are the only
Okay.
two. Yeah. Everything else you learn to be afraid of, right? So if you have that same zest or zeal for life, and as you're going through that process, you're not handicapped by constantly thinking I shouldn't be doing this, or I can't do this, or comparing yourself to other people. Just like your journey, I would imagine that as you started your process, people started to compare themselves to you, right? Because I know when 10 years I've been doing this, and when I began, I had friends that would kind of walk with me, right, until it got to a point. And that point was having to do things consistently. They would do it every now and then, but to do it consistently, it was a disconnect. And I think it was because it wasn't their passion, But had they been doing things in line with their passion, I believe they would have been more focused in getting it done. What do you think about that?
Yeah, for sure. Passion is a big part of it. And, you said you believe everybody's an entrepreneur, and I would agree with that, but I would add a little twist to it probably and say that not everybody's cut out to own their own business. There are some people who just aren't cut out for that. However, everybody can and should be an entrepreneur where they are now. So even if you have a job at a big company,
right,
you have clients at that job, right?
True.
And you have things that you have to accomplish. And the people who treat a job as a job are generally not as successful as people who treat their job as something like their own business.
Right.
And if they treat their job as an entrepreneurial venture where they're taking care of their clients, they're looking for ways to continually improve, they're looking for ways to leverage and delegate their time and their energy, they're looking to make things more efficient rather than just kind of passing the buck. Those are the people who successfully can climb the corporate ladder. So they are entrepreneurial, but they may be entrepreneurial inside of a corporate environment, and they're the ones that are usually more successful. So I would submit that as an idea.
And I also believe that being an entrepreneur, you have to create a team, right? So a lot of the people that you just described would be on the team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I would still believe that they would have like a place within the organization that would, make their position just as vital as the actual owner.
Absolutely.
Because, I believe that business is a team sport. It's not really for one individual. But, nowadays you can do a lot of things by yourself with the internet, thanks to the internet, right?
Sure.
And I think that people that are just beginning to understand that this isn't going any place, and they need to start, it's never been simpler to set things up like this. This is incredibly simple, and it kind of just walks you through the process. So if you become consistent with it, that's where I see people having an issue with doing what they love or doing what they want that generates an income. Because if the money doesn't come quick enough, or if the money stops, or if the money never comes, then they're going to switch and go to another something based on the amount of money, opposed to something they really enjoy. Because I believe it needs to be like a lifetime venture. You're going to have like subsidiaries of what you're doing, but your main focus, the main thing is going to be the main thing. I believe that, like what you do as an entrepreneur, you've been able to incorporate several other arms of income along the way, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But it was
You mentioned
basically
Robert Allen in my bio. One of the most influential readings or pieces of information I ever received way early in my career was Robert Allen's Multiple Streams of Income, and it really put in my brain that you can never have just one source of revenue. You can never have one source of income. If you do, you're in big trouble.
That's
And so
really
I've
a job.
always managed that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really a job. And
that's a job. People have a job, they have one source of income, and then the next thing you know, they lose their job and they're in trouble. And so nobody should ever have one source of income.
But I believe too that if you have a job and you're one of those people who are, because I believe some people are so committed to the actual doing the work that it's hard for them to disconnect with that. You know what I mean? Like I know people that say, well, yeah, they can do it, but I need to do it myself because they feel like they can do it better than anybody else, or for whatever. I don't know what causes people to think like that, but I know people that think like that, and then they're serious about it. So I know that they exist, but I believe that will limit them as far as they can go because it's a 1-to-1 ratio. They got to do the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, you don't actually have to do a lot of the work that's being done when you're creating a product, and then there's like different like online courses. Do you have any online courses that you've created? Can you hear me? Did I go blank? Marty. Sometimes this technology will do that though. Marty, can you hear me? Okay, we're gonna have to bring Marty back in and see what's going on with that. Marty, uh-oh. How did that happen, I wonder? That's the advantages and disadvantages of technology, I guess. So we're gonna wait a second and see whether or not this thing adjusts itself, because sometimes it will self-correct. Okay, we went out for a second. So let's see. Oh, Marty probably went out. Let's see if he comes back in. Okay, and in the meantime, this is what could happen. When you have an online system and you're, doing Zoom interviews, especially if you're doing a lot of Zoom interviews like I do. I do 2 Zoom interviews a week, and that's not like, breaking the bank, but it is a requirement. And then, a lot of people this time of night are trying to access the internet as well, right? So it's just a give and take. I'm trying to give Marty a second to come in, but it looks like we may have a disconnect, which means we may have to start another show because we had only gone about 7 to 10 minutes, something in that neighborhood. So let's check one more thing to see whether or not we can bring this back. Wow. See, this has never happened to me, so I don't really know how to adjust to it. It's like I was doing an interview on Tuesday, and the actual guest got there before I got there. And since she was there, it muted the recording. And I had never experienced that, so I had to understand. Okay, there's Marty. Marty, you back?
Yeah, so that was kind of interesting.
Well,
I could hear and see myself, but not you. And I don't know what happened. Zoom wouldn't let me back in.
I was just trying to keep it going, so because I don't think like that do happen. But could you hear me while you were off?
Well, I don't know what I heard last or whatever, but you're talking about one-on-one or building a team or something. I'm not sure when it all cut off. So
right. Well, we'll just go on from there, and that's one of the things I like about mistakes. Because mistakes is something else that keeps people from taking that next step, right? How did you overcome some of your missteps along the way?
Oh my goodness, there's been plenty. I mean, really, it's a matter. It's an old cliche, but like, you get back up on that horse.
Right.
I've had businesses that have tanked. I'll tell you, I had a business I was with some partners. We were getting a business up and running back in 2008. We'd been working on it for almost 2 years. We had hundreds of thousands of dollars of our own money in it. Everything was looking really good. We had an investor who had agreed to give us $1 million to get it launched.
Wow.
And we got on we were in San Jose, California, and we got on a plane to go have a meeting with the guy in Miami, Florida. And so we left in the morning. We were going to go and have a very nice dinner at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel and sign the deal and pick up $1 million check. And while we were in the air was when Bear Stearns collapsed and the financial crisis of 08-09 happened literally that day while we were in the air.
Wow.
And we landed and the guy picked us up at the airport and he said, "Look, guys, this is what's happened." He said, "I've lost about $7 million today." And he says, "I'm going to buy you a real nice dinner tonight, but that's all the money you're getting out of me."
Wow, wow.
And we wound up scrapping that business because there was no way to get the funding we needed until that last financial crisis was over. But we scrambled and kept on going and never gave up and learned from it. So one difference between the financial crisis of 08 and 09 to the financial crisis that we're currently in 2020 is that I have now positioned myself, and I've got a group of partners. So we are actually helping businesses that I wasn't in a position to help businesses in 2008, 2009, really weather through that other than try and give them the best advice I could. But
right.
We're actually seeking businesses to invest in and help get through all this mess. And so that's a big difference. So now if I've got, if I meet a business owner and their business was a solid, good running, profitable business before all this mess, and they're just kind of in a little bit of a trouble because of what's going on, but there's a good vision for what's an exit. Now I'm in a position with my partners to invest in that business and help them get through this. Right. And that makes me feel really good because I want to save jobs. I want to save jobs. I want to save companies. I want to save business owners who are good people, hardworking people that have been hit with something absolutely unprecedented. And there's PPP loans and whatever else, but for the most part, that's not enough, and it's not going to be enough. So that's one way to get through. But downturn is like I went from kind of expecting $1 million check to getting a really nice dinner, but that's all I got, and then really kind of slogging through the last financial crisis. And this one, I'm in a position to not only help my partners, but help other businesses that are out there who might need some capital and might need, they might be interested in taking an investor on that can sustain their business and keep them in as a business owner role.
Right.
I don't want to buy any business I have to run. I'm looking to invest in businesses that, that the owner wants to stay on and keep running the thing. Mm-hmm. And, so yeah, you learn and you grow. That's the difference. 12 years makes.
I noticed that you're a speaker as well, right?
That's correct.
A lot of the people that I cross paths with, they have a fear of speaking. Did you have a fear of speaking initially?
I flunked public speaking in school. I got up on the final thing. I had my speech all prepared and memorized, and I had rehearsed it in front of the mirror, and I got up on that stage and I could not do it. And I said, "I'll take the F." Wow. And it was pretty amazing. And so I said, never, I'm not a get on the stage kind of guy. And fast forward to about 1999, 2000, somewhere in there. And the CEO of a company I was working with had a big speech to give at a big conference. And he said, "I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. So you write the speech, you create the PowerPoints, you tell me what to say and everything else." I said, "All right." So I did all that. And then after the speech, people were had all sorts of questions, and he didn't know any of the answers. Because he was the CEO, he's not in the weeds. And he said, hang on a minute, come here, Marty, come up here. So he brings me up on stage, and I'm in front of 300 people, and he's like, "Here, ask this guy." And I was kind of thrust into it without any warning, which is probably why it worked. And I stood on that stage for an hour and answered people's questions. And by the time I was done, I was a professional speaker. And now I've gone on stages all across the world and taught and trained about marketing. And online sales, customer service, and all sorts of different topics.
What would you say if you were going to identify what you have a passion for, what you really enjoy? Because I notice a lot of your pictures are like outdoor pictures. Are you like outdoor
well, yeah, you see my background. This is a canyon in the Bighorn Mountain Range of Wyoming, and you see my logo up there, Adventurous Inspired Marketing. So I'm an outdoors guy. I grew up in the mountains of Utah, camping and fishing and hiking and backpacking and skiing, and it was on the ski team when I was in high school and all sorts of stuff. I'm very much an outdoors guy, but I'm a business guy too. So I've as you mentioned, I mean, I've built and run multiple businesses. I've generated over $1 billion in sales. And about 6 or 7 years ago, I realized that the two were kind of meshing together, and in an effective way. So I was invited to go become as a speaker to a CEO summit in Montana that was put on by a big software company. They were having all of their top their top clients. They invited the CEOs from all their top clients to come in for this private weekend summit. And they asked me to come in and deliver a keynote at the end of like day 2. Now these are the CEOs of big brands that you know of. Williams-Sonoma, Nike was there, Herbalife was there, a couple other companies. And so what happened is on the first day was a play day, and we all went skiing in Big Sky, Montana. And I spent every chairlift ride up, I spent with a different one of the CEOs, and every run down I spent with a different one. And I spent the entire day with those CEOs, and I would just listen and ask questions and listen and listen and listen. The next day we had some kind of workshop time, and then it was time for me to deliver my keynote speech at the end of the second day. And I threw away the keynote speech that I had prepared weeks in advance for this event, and instead I customized it exactly for what the CEOs had been telling me their issues were.
Oh.
And it was amazing. The quality of the information that I gave these people was through the roof good, and they were like, that was exactly what we needed to hear. Well, how did I do that? It was because I sat on the chairlift and I listened to them as we went up the mountain, and we chatted as we came down the mountain. And I realized that had we sat in a conference room that entire first day, I would have not had not a fraction of the openness and the creativity that those people gave me during that time. So I started kind of playing around with, well, what happens if I take other people out to do other things? So I started, doing other activities with other clients, and we would go whitewater rafting, or we would go mountain biking, or and it doesn't have to be crazy stuff. It could be something very, I'll tell you, have you ever gone camping or been out on a picnic and just sat around a campfire on an evening?
Absolutely.
Have you? Okay. How do you feel when you're sitting around a campfire just staring at the coals and the flames?
It kind of puts me in thought. I'm a thinker automatically, but it opens my mind to other possibilities, because I'm an ex-military person too. So I've been out there in the wilderness, just nobody else but the troops, right? And you get a lot of time to just look around, and nature has a distinct part to who we are and what we do in life too.
It absolutely does. Studies show, and I have all the studies actually on my website, but studies prove that spending time outdoors helps us communicate better, be more creative, sharpen our problem-solving skills, increases our self-confidence, and even boosts our immune system.
Wow.
That's something that's needed today.
Right.
So aren't all those things assets that we would want as an entrepreneur to have ourselves and for our team? Absolutely.
Yes.
And so I realized that if I can bring my clients outdoors and will experience those things, and the team building, and I'm talking about different stuff than the traditional, go out and do a ropes course, although we do ropes courses, but I try to do something even more natural.
Right.
But the type of creativity that comes, the type of camaraderie that comes, the kind of memories that are made. I'll tell you what, I had a client where it was a virtual company. They had all their employees were in different places in the United States working remotely, and there were a couple of the team members who were having a lot of friction, and the rest of the team was really tight. We were really close.
Okay.
But there were a couple of people who had a lot of friction. I went through the org chart and I asked the CEO, I said, based on the hiring date of these two people, am I correct in assuming they've never met face to face? And he's like, well, and you're looking, yeah, that's right. Because before that, he always got the team together for, couple times a year for different types of activities. I said, well, let's plan a retreat. And I bet it changes. I bet all the problems that we've had go away. And we did. So we planned a retreat. We did a resort in Minnesota, and a lot of water skiing and fishing and some fun stuff like that. Afterward, those two people who had a lot of friction leading up to that for months were best of friends.
Wow.
And there was zero friction among the team for the rest of that year. Now, could I have brought them together face to face in a conference room and done something in a conference room? Absolutely. Would it have been as effective? I don't believe so at all.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. So that's the concept behind my business. So I consult, I coach, I help businesses grow, the traditional coaching and consulting, but I add the twist of the adventurous, inspired element to it. And my results are phenomenally higher than before I used to do that.
I can see that too, because when you are out in the wilderness, you do kind of rely on the people that you're around, or you kind of open up to the people that you're around, because it gives you a different perspective. And I also believe that because I have some friends that they like to what you call a trail walk. They'll just get up on Saturday morning and just walk for like a couple of hours on certain trails.
Sure. And
I had never done that, but when I did it with them one time, and I really enjoyed it, because I was like, I'm a fitness person, first of all, but just to walk a trail is not the fitness I do. I'm in the gym kind of person.
Right.
But like, I believe it's because we were outside, and it was.
Now, you were with your friends at that time?
Yes.
And did you talk about things on that walk that you probably would never have talked about if you had just been in the gym?
And they told me things that I would never ask them. I was like, wow. That's why I say there's a connection, because I believe that the God that created us all has a bigger system than we actually give credit to. Well, I believe a lot of times too that we are so busy living life, what we call life, or just doing life, that there's a lot of things that it's like once you are, let's say you are learning a new skill and you're at level 1. By the time you get to level 4, you've learned things that you didn't know on level 1, which means you're able to see things that's available that you couldn't see on level 1, right?
Sure.
So by the time you get to level 10, then it's like, you've done that 10,000 hours of, investing in one niche, right? So there's levels of things that, but I believe that one of the things that we have a problem with as human beings is ourselves. I believe we have the most difficult time overcoming our self-talk and what we say to ourselves. How do you work yourself through certain situations when you find yourself in those situations? Because our self-talk will talk to us.
Yeah, oh, that's for sure. Well, from a business standpoint, if you're not afraid at least once a week, you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough. Wow. So I believe you do have to figure out how to overcome your fears, because if you, as an entrepreneur, which I know that's who you're speaking to for the most part, you're going to be afraid. You're going to be afraid all the time.
Right.
Because there's so many unknowns, and things are constantly changing, and we're living in an unprecedented environment right now throughout the world. So how do you overcome? You just keep on keeping on, man. Keep on keeping on. I am a huge fan of masterminding. So I have a mastermind group that I have been participating in since 2005. So we're in our 15th year masterminding together every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. And that mastermind group helps me substantially, because it's we get on there and we say, what's working, what are my wins for the last week, what are my struggles for the last week, and how can you help me? And so every person in the mastermind group takes a turn sharing the wins, sharing their struggles. And then the whole group says, how can we help you? And so the biggest way I would say to get over your fear, and you mentioned this at the very beginning of this interview about teamwork, right? Having people around you.
Right.
As an entrepreneur, do not try and do it all yourself.
I agree.
Whether it's making the widgets or whether it's overcoming fear, you need a team surrounding you, lifting you up to make you more successful. Right. So I actually have an ebook about masterminding. It's a free ebook. If you want to let your audience know about it, you can get it off my website. Be happy to share it. But it tells you all about the power of masterminding, how to set up your own mastermind, all the different kinds of masterminds. It's a great ebook. I've had a lot of positive feedback on it. But I'm a big fan of masterminding.
Great. Let me ask you a couple more questions before we end this interview. But these more or less in line with today's times. What with this coronavirus and everything that's going around, do you think that we're opening the system up too quickly?
Oh, that's a loaded question. No, I do not think we're opening up the system too quickly. I think we're opening it up too slow. Absolutely. I'll tell you why. I for the people who've lost somebody to coronavirus or lost somebody to COVID, my heart absolutely goes out to you, and you have my condolences. Here's what I know to be true. Suicides are up substantially. I know 5 people in the last 2 weeks that have been impacted by suicide.
Wow.
I know 0 people that have had a COVID death in their lives. Okay. Suicides are up. Domestic violence is up.
Absolutely.
Child abuse is up.
Yep, I heard that.
Okay. We now have 26 million people out of work, and we have millions of people who are, millions of small businesses. A good portion, who knows how many, but I would guess at least 1 million are never going to open their doors again. Oh, yeah. How many of those entrepreneurs who have been trying to support their family, they built a business for 20 or 30 years and overnight had it taken away from them? How are they going to do? I'll tell you something else. 2 days ago, as of this timing, you can look it up. It came out on Reuters News, so that's a legitimate news service. The UN said that the poverty as a result of the global shutdown is estimated, the UN is estimated it's going to kill 200,000 children.
Wow.
Look it up. The UN, this came out on about March 21st, I would think. Okay. About March 21st, the UN says that poverty as a result of the global shutdown is going to kill up to 200,000 children.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Okay. Let me tell you another thing nobody's thinking about. I have a very good friend who's a nurse. About 10 days into this whole mess back in March, I texted her and I said, hey, how are you holding up? And she's like, I'm just sitting here. So what do you mean you're just sitting here? She goes, I can't get a shift at the hospital for nothing. So, well, that's weird. I thought you'd be completely buried. Well, I forgot she's a nurse at a transplant ward. Okay. Mm-hmm. Normally, that transplant ward has 40 rooms, all full of people getting kidney transplants, lung transplants, liver transplants, etc. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? Out of those 40 rooms, there were only 6 patients in there. Why? Because the number one source of transplant organs is automobile accidents. You can't harvest an organ from somebody that has cancer. You can't harvest an organ from somebody that has coronavirus. Okay. You can't harvest an organ from somebody that has a chronic disease. Mm-hmm. Organs are harvested from automobile accidents. Okay. Now, that's a terrible thing. And it's a good thing that automobile accidents are down so much that people are getting refunds on their auto insurance. Mm-hmm. But in further research, here's what I found out. The number of organs has dropped so dramatically that if you are on a transplant list and you have less than 6 months to live, mm-hmm. the odds of you getting an organ now are almost 0.
Wow.
And if you have up to a year to live, your odds are less than 50-50 of ever seeing an organ. Mm-hmm. So yes, we need to mitigate coronavirus deaths. Mm-hmm. But if you look at how many deaths we've actually had mm-hmm. versus how many deaths we're having because of the lockdown, mm-hmm. the math is a little squirrely. And I am probably going to take a lot of heat for saying what I'm saying. There are a lot of people with the exact opposite opinion, but I have studied this extensively. I don't even know why you asked me about it, because it doesn't have to do with entrepreneurship, but I've studied this extensively, and I look at the data, I look at the numbers, I look at the real information.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, the cure is worse than the disease right now, and we need to get back to work.
Wow, interesting. And I can see how that would be the case too, because it's kind of like those are the side effects of the coronavirus that people are not really mindful of.
Mm-hmm.
Just focus on the corona killing, and then now you got to focus on the economy. Without that, people don't have jobs. So with all that, I can see how the stress and the day-to-day of uncertainty, it's kind of like you're just waiting to get the coronavirus or something, and in the meantime, you're losing everything, right? You're constantly being in debt, so I can see how that would make sense from the
and entrepreneurs are particularly vulnerable because most self-employed people can't get unemployment.
Right.
They, most of my clients they're all getting hosed. They're getting completely hosed.
Right.
They're not getting. Here's something else. One of my clients called me yesterday morning, almost in tears. Her company, she had about 15 employees. Mm-hmm. Half of her employees, she got some funding, and she actually had a new project come in that would allow her to bring all her employees back in and get going again. Okay. Half her employees won't come back in because they're making more money on unemployment right now with the extra $600 a week than they would make working. So she is on the verge of going out of business, even though she has the opportunity not to, but because of the way that all the aid has worked, the average person on unemployment, if they were making, I think the threshold is like $21 an hour. If you make less than $21 an hour at your job, you're making more on unemployment because you don't have to pay taxes on it.
Right.
And so there are millions of people right now who are making more staying at home than at work. But guess what? The people that own those businesses are not getting those benefits, and they're the ones that are struggling.
That's right. All right, well, listen, I sure appreciate.
Sorry, you got me fired up on a hot topic.
I really do appreciate you taking some time out of your busy day, because I know, it sounds like you got a full plate every day, and I know that's a good thing, but I also know it's a thing. So if you would allow my people to get your email address and I'll just add those links to my to the video at the bottom. So
yeah, well, there's my website is adventurousmarketing.com.
Okay.
And on that website, there's a tab for services, and one of them says mastermind groups. Okay. If you go to that one, that's where you can download that free book. Like I said, I highly recommend you people take a look at that. It's a lot of good information. I highly recommend masterminding, and there's also a page on there for investments. So if any of your listeners have a business and you're struggling and you need some help, please contact us. We've got plenty of people who can help you out. So we're trying to help as many business owners as we can right now.
Great. Okay. Well, with that, Marty, I sure appreciate you taking time out of your schedule again. And as I always like to end, my name is Larry James. My company is Speak with Larry. And as always, share with someone else what I've shared with you. Okay. Thanks, Marty.
Thank you.